What's going on, everybody? Welcome back for another episode of the Crane Kicks Lex podcast. Been 2 weeks. I didn't get a quick kicks out to you guys. It's been crazy busy for all of us. Man, it just seems like the weeks have been packed. And then, of course, we've had so much soccer. Blessed with it. Hashtag blessed with extra soccer. Well, I don't know. I guess it depends on who you ask based on results. But we'll get into that. It's not a big deal. We're gonna cross that bridge when it comes. But we're glad to be back. Got the whole crew together. Of course, we got Dylan here. We got Kyle, our jet setter. Everybody's in the house. Let's get into this. Dylan, how you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. It's officially fall now. It doesn't really feel like it yet, but I'm hoping soon we'll get some pure fall weather. You know what I
We need
mean?
it. Yes.
Yeah. There's one thing I want you both of your takes on. If there's one like imparting thing that I can leave on this earth, it's that like when people are driving, do not stay in the left lane, right? Like it's a keep right, pass left, right? And that goes for like, highways, freeways, interstates, you know. Kyle, like I don't know how you feel about this too, but I'm pretty passionate about it. And like I really need to, like I said, my dying wish, I hope this makes an impact on the earth, you know.
So it sounds like you've had a good week. I will say you're definitely prioritizing the important um, aspects of life, and I am 1,000% in your corner on this.
Thank you.
And Tyler mentioned jet setting. It's really just getting in my car and driving to Louisville every week. It feels like, and I can tell you that I am one to, according to my wife, perhaps get a little bit too close to the car in front of me, just giving them a friendly, like, you should
Reminder.
go ahead and get over. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead and get over. And if I have to pass you on the right, you're getting a stare down.
Oh yeah,
And
I'm with
I don't
you.
care age, gender, what, I don't care who you are. You're
It's
getting
like I'm
stare
talking
down.
to myself right now. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, sometimes my wife thinks I get a little passionate. You know, I don't know if road rage is quite as, I feel a little too strong for it, but man, I agree with you 100%. And like I said, all these trips up and down 64, I feel like it's all I've been doing lately.
I just would like to imagine that as you're staring them down and yelling at them out your window, you're smacking a Crane Kicks Lex sticker on the side of the car and be like, and make sure you follow and listen in. And then you just drive off. Um, doing your part. That took a weird turn. Sorry, Kyle. What were you gonna say?
No, I was going to say I don't do that.
I know you don't.
Right, I will start
See, the
doing
listener
that, but
counts.
yeah, they like all of our reviews just start being like some guy in a gray Acura yelled at me. Anyway, the pod's pretty good.
Yeah, he was right, and I probably
Yeah,
should have used the right hand lane.
he was really aggressive, but yeah. Anyway, I enjoy the pod.
Passionate. They use the word passionate. See, they're buying in. That took a weird turn. I mean, of course, I agree with you guys. I thought Dylan, you were gonna hit us with like as soon as it turns fall, you start drinking hot apple cider. Because when you texted us the other day saying
I,
you were already drinking hot apple cider, I was like, what is wrong with this man? It's not even cold yet. Like I get that we're like officially, in a fall, but man, this is not fall. But you committed.
I mean, yeah, I did take a left turn there because I really need to get that out in the world, and I think Kyle will agree. We need to spread this message far across the lands. Um, but yeah, I do really enjoy fall, and I love the fall weather, and I do love hot apple cider, and I did have hot apple cider last night. I literally we got our groceries, and I purposely put in the click list order apple cider so I could heat it up, throw in some cinnamon, stir it all up, have me some gingy snaps as well.
I mean, I
You're
guess I
sitting there
can't say anything.
sweating in your flannel, like
Yeah,
that's
I
yeah. We've
mean,
we've had pumpkins in our house for like a month, so I'm not gonna like judge anyone here, but
just keep them.
we're yeah. It's a little too warm still. We did have a pot of chili last week too. I was like,
I
we're
mean,
really just
I'm
we're really
I'm
just
an
forcing it.
I'm an
Yeah,
AC like all year round kind of guy. Like
yeah.
Same.
I love to wear a sweatshirt. My wife and I love to sit in blankets on the couch. So like, yeah.
I mean,
I am what I am, guys. You know.
kind of like Kyle's boat. I almost made some chili the other day because like the football and
Mm-hmm.
that fall is coming up. It just was like, man, some chili sounds good. And I'm like, man, it's like almost 90 degrees. Stop that.
Yeah.
I held off, but I don't know how much longer I can hold off from
Don't
making
deny
chili.
yourself the pleasure.
I know,
We've
dude.
actually made chili twice, 2 different chilies already.
Oh
So
man.
See,
we're full in.
So
Yeah.
I'm really lagging. Like the best I got is I'm wearing a hoodie today, and that's as close as I'm getting so far. But I'm gonna creep closer, just bit by bit, until we get there. I don't know. We'll see how close that happens. But I am ready for some soccer where I actually am not like dying because the sun is beating down on me. Although this Sunday wasn't so bad. It was like cloudy, overcast. We had some breeze. Wasn't terrible, but most of these games, I'm just ready for it to cool off a little bit and throw on a hoodie and go watch some soccer. That's what I'm looking for. It'll come. At least like by the last game for the men, maybe. I don't
yeah.
know. Sometimes late October is not any better. It's like whenever we brought our first son home, who's like 6 now, and he was like a newborn, and we were leaving the hospital, and we had this like really warm outfit, and we're like, okay, bundle him up, and then we realized it was like 86 degrees. I was like, okay, never mind. Mom, will you bring us a different outfit for the baby so he doesn't roast on the way home? October's been wild, so we'll see. I'm hoping for good weather for that like Chattanooga game, or not Chattanooga, right? We
Yeah,
got
it is
is
Chattanooga.
it? Is it okay? I had a moment there where I'm like, wait, is it?
Oh
Yeah, maybe it'll be
wait, hold
nice weather.
on. No, no,
Independence,
no. Chattanooga's the
Independence.
last game, and that's the away. That's an away
That's what I'm
match.
thinking.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
I am
Independence. That's
too.
the last home. We
Yes.
get to face the Jacks one more go around. Um, I don't know. I don't know. Well, it'll come. We're not gonna force fall. We're just gonna kind of nudge it a little bit. Just kind of scoot it to where we want it to show up for us. Let's get into some soccer. We're going to switch things up a little bit. I know sometimes we start with the USL one side and then switch to Super League, but that's usually just kind of because the USL one side happens first and then Super League. But I kind of want to change things up and talk Super League first because it's freshest on my mind. I got to go to the match yesterday. Dylan, I think you managed to watch from home. Kyle is definitely up on the highlights and has the need to know. All right. So I was hoping for a win. Fort Lauderdale was coming in hot because they had just gotten a win of their own. Um, we didn't get it, obviously. We didn't get it, obviously. We managed to get a goal of our own, but it was still a tough one. In this match, we even saw more experimentation. We saw things being kind of switched up a little bit. We saw the debut of several players. So we had like Amanda Allen playing a full 90, her first time out on the pitch for us, in fact, and she was out there the whole entire time. For those of you guys that aren't caught up yet, she's our loanee from Orlando coming out of the NWSL. Also plays for the U20 Canadian national team. That's where she's been this whole time, is competing with them in the U20 Women's World Cup. So now she's back because Canada's out of the mix. And then, of course, we saw Grace Wisniewski, who is our Australian signing, our first signing that we announced. In fact, she appeared for the first time. She come back from an injury. We had Madeline Holme, who is from Norway. She's back and ready for action. She appeared for a little bit. So we had a lot of people out there on the pitch that we're not used to seeing. Plus a little bit of a mix up, like Autumn Weeks was in the midfield to start things off instead of back in the back line like we're used to seeing her. So Mike Dickey and crew up to their old tricks of, playing scientists. We got Bill Nye mode happening. And I don't hate it. You got to find your formula. You got to find what's going to work, and the only way to do that is to experiment. But what are we thinking out of this match? Because I know we were all hoping for a win. I know we were hoping that maybe we would like find our footing and kind of seize that opportunity against a team. Instead, we get another thumping, right? It's not quite as bad as Dallas. We still managed to let another hat trick, the first hat trick ever for Fort Lauderdale, happen, just like we let the first hat trick for Dallas happen. In fact, I think that was the first hat trick in the league. So not great. The fight was there, result was not. Dylan, help me out, man. You got to watch it all in its entirety.
Yeah, there was just like a lot of little mistakes, like a lot of passes that didn't get to their intended target. There were a lot of
Yeah.
really heavy touches on the ball. That was like probably the biggest problem to me that really plagued us was like our touches were just so heavy, and the opponent fed off those.
Hmm.
Excuse me. Um, I think this team's very young, and I think there's still a lot of work to be done, and we have not found the final form, like the lineup and the formation. It's all gonna change. Like it's gonna keep changing for a bit until we find our footing. I mean, we saw those players that you mentioned, Tyler, who have pretty good experience
Yeah.
outside the U.S. as well, who maybe they would be starters if they were 100% healthy, but we don't really know. I mean, like
Yeah.
I'm only saying that because I just don't know.
Yeah.
Um, but what I will guarantee you is things will change. You know, like the the team's going to just be very different for a little bit, and trying to figure out what works to iron out those details, because comparatively to the other match, it was a lot better. We looked
Hmm.
very, very spicy, especially in the
Hmm.
first like 10, 15 minutes. We
Oh
were
yeah.
we were we were fantastic. And I liked seeing Autumn Weeks in that position too. I thought she played pretty well.
Yeah.
Um, and we're seeing Shin all over the place as well. She
Hmm.
was at left back. she was
Yeah.
she's very physical, which is really crazy. Like she's a very physical player, and like that one jumping kick she had to stop the ball, like
Yeah.
that was impressive. Um, I mean, there's a lot of
Good.
really good highlights for this team, and like really good moments. It's
Hmm.
just ironing out those details.
Right. And I 100% agree with that. And you know, I think some people will listen and then they'll listen to us talk about the men's team and then the women's team and compare the two and wonder like why so tough on the men's team versus the women's. And I think I just want to like kind of put a little bit of a perspective here before I continue with what we're saying. I will say it's because like this is brand spanking new. It's brand spanking new. It's like last season where I was so forgiving with everything happening with the men's team because it was brand spanking new and
Even
you're trying to
I,
build something from scratch, you right? And that's what's happening right now. And I know that some people are like, man, like Mike Dickey and the crew, they like to just kind of throw everything in a bag and then pour it out and say Yahtzee and see what happens. But I kind of respect that if you're going to tout that you're going to bring in players of all different skill sets and with supposed versatility, you might as well check out that versatility while you still have time to check it out and kind of iron out where are you really going to benefit this team and who are you going to work best with in what situations. And so while I know the results aren't there, I think that's like one of the biggest takeaways from me is that I feel like we're inching closer and closer and closer to seeing something a little bit more solidified and a little bit more that we're able to grasp it and say this is who we are and what we look like, and here's kind of our formation and our players that we're going to see more often than not. And with us having all these players put into the mix just this weekend that have come back from injuries, had things holding them back from joining the squad, but now they're finally here. I think now is when you really start to say, okay, we have everybody here now. Who is actually going to be like our core set of starters? And we've seen a little bit of that. We've seen some people that have started every game so far. So I think it's not like we don't know at all, but at the same time, you're kind of doing the club and the team and the fans a disservice if you don't test things out to say, could we tweak this and find something to make it a little bit better than it was last time? Or is somebody else going to push us over that edge and bring us where we want to be? So as much as it's a bummer that we got these results. The fight was there. A lot of it was little mistakes. I talked to Mike Dickey afterwards in the interviews. Some of you guys might have already seen him at this point, but he even mentioned like we could have had 3 goals. Like it was like by inches on a couple of our chances. It was wild. I managed to sit over with the Railbirds. My family wasn't with me for this game, so I was like, let's go sit by the Railbirds and kind of get the vibes. And so, of course, they're attacking for the whole first half on that side. And every single time we had one of those chances, I'm like, how did that not go in? Like, that was by like divine intervention and some really good defending, because their keeper was beat on several occasions, and either the crossbar saved them or a defender saved them. And I know you can coulda, woulda, shoulda to death, but man, if those things had gone our way, we're talking a different story. They didn't, and here we are. So you can't really hang your hat on that, but I think that we're kind of inching where we want to be.
I think there are some things to hang your hat on, though. Like,
Yeah.
like you're saying, I think we're pretty good on set pieces.
Mhm.
I think Maddie
Oh, man.
Perez is,
Ooh. Don't get me started on Maddie Perez, dude.
she's killing it. And,
Yes.
talking about experimentation, maybe we move her up the field where she can be more creative in, live balls, so Kyle.
She's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kyle, I know you're wanting to say something.
Yeah.
No, I was just gonna back to at some point talking about the parallels to last year and how like there were a lot of matches that you go through in your first season and you just try to figure out like who's going to fit where, who actually belongs at this level. And I think it's even more difficult to, and I'm not saying any players on this team don't belong at this level, but what I'm saying is at least with League One, there had been a couple seasons, 3 seasons of tape that team scouts can look at and get an idea of like what type of football is being played, where this is like completely brand new out of thin air, out of nowhere essentially. And so you have these 8 teams that are putting rosters together with essentially no like guiding precedent set of like this is what this type of league should look like. And so I think there are other parallels to last year too, in the sense that there are those kind of bright individual moments, but it's still just figuring out how everything gels together. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's 4 matches that obviously haven't been able to get a victory yet, but I think if you look at the roster and the formation and some of the tactics being used right now, it could look a lot different months from now, and it should look a lot different. I think I would just preach patience with this squad, and obviously I'm just echoing what you two have said at that point. But I mean, the concerning thing obviously is the goals allowed, in my opinion. I mean, 6 in one game can definitely skew your stats, but it's still almost 3 times as much as the next leakiest defense. Not that everyone's played the exact same amount of matches, but just trying to I like that the team's scoring goals, but it's at some point you have to really figure out the defensive side of the ball. And I mean, Skiba made some great saves on Sunday. I saw. It's just you can't ask a goalie to do. You can only ask a goalie to do so much, I should say. So it's just, to me, it is going to be a game of patience. And I understand that all the excuses I just made for Lexington could be said about the other teams, but they're succeeding. Not obviously not to different degrees, but I would just say that it's going to take some time, and we saw some new faces on Sunday, and we'll continue to see some new faces and formations and tactics and minutes played and everything. So I would just say have some patience. What I really liked about the home opener from a couple weeks ago is this team in possession. I kind of worried a little bit out of possession. It got a little helter skelter, especially on the back end. So, things to be improved upon, sure, but I think there's some bright moments, and like we saw last year, I think it felt like we led the league, USL League One, and players of the week and goals of the week and saves of the week, and we just couldn't put wins together. So hopefully it's not a season long thing, but I would just say keep the patience with this team.
Yeah, I think that's really important for people to remember, and I think sometimes people conflate both, like their feelings with both squads. They kind of get congealed into one thing. And like, as much as we're one crest, one club, you also have to remember, like, we're also two teams, and you kind of have to like take perspective into account and say, okay, what is the perspective for this team that I should be seeing through, right? And everybody deserves, patience and belief, and like, you can do this, let's go. But with the women, like, they've got a much longer, road to go. So there's time for them to figure out the journey as we go through it. Maybe we can kind of tackle a question that I got from Matthew Becknell, one of our listeners who always contributes. He's asking, like, what do we think the Super League team needs to do to change things up to get that first win? He's wondering, like, what should be done to capture that first win.
I don't know. I mean, that's so hard because it's still so early, and I still haven't seen what everyone is capable of.
Right.
I mean, it. The best way I can describe it is your best players are your best players, right? And the formation and like lineup will eventually figure itself out once those players start to get minutes and emerge themselves, right? Like the players will figure themselves out and emerge as the like true starters.
Right.
There are probably a couple positions that might be like set already. I don't know if I can name one. Maybe goalkeeper. I do really like our keeper right now, Skiba. Tyler, your thoughts on the question?
I think it's going to have to eventually come down to us nailing down, like, this is our core 11, and this is how we're going to utilize them immediately on the field. I think that once we've decided that, maybe minus one or two, you know what I mean? Because I feel like even whenever teams have their core 11, there's always like a couple of changes game to game for various reasons, right? It might just be tactically, oh, we need you against this particular team because you could stop this type of press or this attacker or whatever it might be. But I think once we really kind of refine like who it is that we're going to consistently be putting out there as a unit, we'll see those little things like what we saw this past weekend cleaned up, because they were clicking really well in a lot of our other games. But it also seems like the more we mix things up, the more they're not clicking. And I don't think it's because we have bad players. It's just they still have to find that game time chemistry. They've only had 4 games to figure it out, and not all of them have had 4 games. We had 3 players just this match that passed the weekend where they've had 0 games to figure out, okay, like, how's our chemistry when we're out and we're under pressure from another team. So I think as we settle in a little bit more to that, the wins will start coming. And I know we'd like it quicker. Like some other teams have experienced that much quicker than we have. And that's awesome for them. But hopefully we can get hot at the right time as we find that form and we find that formula. We push, we do what we need to do. Kyle?
I would just also say, like, there's, it's not like there couldn't have been a victory in probably 3 of these, two of these matches, right? So a lot of times, I mean, it's a bit of a cop out, but sometimes it's just literally the way the ball bounces, or the way, like it felt like in that home opener, just kind of ran out of time type of thing, because it felt like momentum was on our side. So I don't think there's any magical, switch that needs to be flipped. Allowing 3 goals in a match, probably not it, but I don't really have any like additional tactical brilliance to offer. Just keep plugging away, keep going for.
No.
Yeah, I mean, we could do some total football, perhaps, if we really want to get super versatile with our players and positioning. But no, I just think you continue to get minutes together as a unit and figure out who that unit is, like Dylan said, and Tyler, like you said, get some of these players more. Like, we've seen 4 matches, but not all of them have been in these matches. So continuing to get healthy and available will help.
Let me ask you guys this. Like, nobody asked us, but this is a question I just kind of had on my mind. Like, if you had to nail down like a must-have for our starting 11 at this point, because I think there's enough players that we've seen enough of that maybe we can make this determination now, and that might change in the future. But as of right now, who is your like, all right, I got to see them on the field whenever we drop that lineup?
That's pretty tough. Maddie Perez, probably, I would
That's a
say.
good choice.
Just because, like, defensive capabilities aside, just what she can bring offensively and
Yeah.
in those scenarios. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna pick two to cop out. I'll stick with my one.
Dead ball specialist. I mean, we're used to like seeing that from, Tate, like year one.
Yeah,
Like that's what it makes me think of. But I'm like, man, Maddie's going to outpace him by like a million assists at the rate she's going. Like she's got three dead ball assists. So that's wild. And like you said, great defender. Kyle, who you got?
I to be honest, I'm not sure if there's one that really stands out. I like what I've seen from McGuire, Mary Kate
Mm-hmm.
McGuire. I feel like her work rate is like super high, and
yeah.
Yeah.
obviously, kind of, I'm not gonna say lucked out, but got a nice goal against Tampa, and on that breakaway goal that she did what before was supposed to do and put that one away. But I feel like she's was consistently causing problems in that match specifically, and continues to just kind of put herself in the mix. I don't know if there really is one that
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a few that Dickie would say like they've earned it, they've kind of locked in their spot,
Yeah.
but um, yeah, I feel like they're still kind of figuring out their footing and everything, and so yeah, I kind of like what McGuire's been able to bring, at least from an energy standpoint.
I know it's a hard question. I don't know. I was sitting there thinking, you know how indecisive I am. I'm like, who would I even choose? Because there's like several names that just are in my brain, and I'm like, I would love to see them all at the same time.
But it's
And
something we
so it's
haven't seen really, like one match, like you said. So
Yeah.
yeah. So it's gonna change over time. I was really split between a handful. I'm gonna be good and be decisive and not say more than one, though. I'll say Maddie Parsons. I feel like she is an absolute beast on the field. I love her playing style. I love the physicality of it, but it's not like sloppy physicality. It's perfect. It's controlled. She shows other players like you're not gonna bully me off of the ball. I'm going to win this ball from you and I'm going to keep it. And she's so good about creating opportunities for other players. She has a lot of unselfish play. And I love it. I'm a big fan. I like physical players that don't let themselves lose control. And I think that she's one of those players. She's physical, doesn't lose control, keeps her head in the game, knows what she has to do to help her team do what they have to do. So that'll be mine. I'm not going to say my other ones. We'll save those maybe. Or maybe I'll tell them in person and be like, hey, guess what? Like, you're really awesome. I like those. Those are good choices. I think as we move forward, okay, we're playing Brooklyn, who only has 2 games. They've got, if I remember right, a win, I believe, off of one of them, and then a draw. So they're trending pretty good off of those first 2 games alone. We got to go face them next. Who knows? There's not a lot of film on them, not a lot of tape. Their head coach finally joined them. I know there was some hang up, but she is with the team now, and so that might change the dynamic even more for better or whatever.
Is she also playing on the team too? I know that there's a lot of that going around these
I don't
days.
think so, dude. I
Oh,
think
okay.
she's been MIA with like visa stuff, and now she's in the mix. So,
Okay. I just wanted to check because I know there's a
yeah,
lot of that going around these days.
I don't think so, man. I
Okay.
don't. I
they
think
they also play on Wednesday too, so we might actually catch them with some tired legs, but
yeah.
we'll see.
hmm That's what I hope, and I think this is another one of those moments where you like kind of hold your breath because you don't exactly know what's going to happen. We've not played them before. There's no storyline between us. You just see their 2 games. They've seen our slew of games that we played already. And so they have a little bit more tape on us, although they don't have a whole lot of information on, everybody as far as like who's going to be where, because I don't know if you could accurately guess the starting 11 and formation of a Mike Dickey squad with LSC, I feel like you have a better chance of honestly winning the lottery. I think you should go out and play those numbers confidently because he keeps you guessing. And I think that's part of his mental side of the game is he knows teams are studying and he's like, hey, guess what? Autumn Weeks is in the midfield. And they're like, what? And obviously they figured us out, but you got to respect the hustle. So
Tyler, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Maybe this will satiate you because you wanted to name so many players so much, but
Yeah.
you were at the game in
Yes.
person. Who really impressed you watching them live in person?
Well, I've seen them both times in
Yeah,
person. So
you know,
it-
I was also
both,
at the home opener, so I just want to
yeah.
hear this perspective.
Well, I'm just saying it's like tough because where I've seen two different games, I feel like both had a really tough fight out of the squad, but I also feel like not everybody had a solid game in one match, but then they showed up in the other one.
Yeah,
So I think it was kind of back and forth. So it's a tough one to answer, honestly, dude, because they were such a different vibe between the two. And, I feel like there are some players that were consistent between the two, but I feel like one I already named. And then, I'm a fan of several of their games. I just feel like maybe they had an off day on this past weekend.
okay,
And I think going forward they're gonna crush it and they're gonna be great. So
okay,
we'll see. Not trying to cop out. I'll save it.
okay. I just want to
All
help
right.
you out there.
Yeah, I know, man. I know. You try to get me an out. But
Sounded like a
I
cop
think
to me.
it's probably a cop out. I do that all the
Mm.
time because I'm indecisive, and then people are like, "Just give me an answer." Oh, leave me alone. Uh, I'm hopeful though. I think that will be good. It was, it definitely seems like for the loss, we're in kind of like a good mindset, like team wise. I think everybody knows there's work to be done. But I don't feel like we're to this point where everybody's getting frustrated. I think it's just a matter of, them all coming together like they know how to do. They've shown that. I think that our women's team is really, really good about being there for each other. And you see that on the field when things happen. They group up, they talk about it, they try and coach each other when things aren't going well. I heard that from a couple players. A couple of things happened where a player didn't follow up with something they were needing to follow up with, and another player coached them. And it wasn't like a, you don't belong on the field type coaching situation. It was like a, hey, like I need you to do this for me. Okay. This is what we need as a team. And so I think it's positive vibes, and they'll keep that mentality. They'll keep driving. All we can do is just keep supporting and doing well. And I hope people show up. Attendance was rough at this one. Hurt my feelings a little bit. It showed up and it was a big uh-oh moment for me. And then they announced, how many people were there, and it was not great. So I just hope, Lexington shows out for our ladies. I know it's sometimes tough. Sundays people are busy, but I mean they're sending out all these deals constantly for you to go to games for cheap. Like, and they're good seats. When you see these $10 tickets, you're probably thinking, man, they're gonna like sit me somewhere where I can't see anything. No. Those $10 tickets are like prime for viewing what's going on. You're gonna see all the action perfectly. So I hope people put that in their plans and make sure they come out, because man, it was a bummer to see them not get as much support as you would hope. But it'll build, it'll grow, it'll morph into something great. I know it will. Let's shift into the guys team, right? We want to talk some USL one. It's
Sure.
been a lot of games.
Yeah.
What would you say, Kyle, earlier? 3 games in 8 days. First time in a long time.
Sorry, yeah. It was something like that. Kind of cut out there for a second. I don't know if that was me or if it was you, but
Probably me.
you're talking about just the amount of games being played. Um, I think we this was like a discussion point in one of the early pods from way back in the spring about how like just the lack of midweek matches this year,
Mm-hmm.
um, because the kind of restructuring of the schedule, the Jaeger Cup, but just not having those. Like I feel like last year there were much more of those midweek matches, and we just
Yeah.
haven't seen them. So obviously last Wednesday went pretty well, but um, all in all, I think it was 3 matches in 8 days.
It's a lot to do. It's a tall order. I obviously we have like the home opener, lose to Knoxville for that. That's a rough one, especially when we were up a man for almost the entirety of the game. Um, that was rough. But then we come back and we deliver an absolute thumping to Fuego. Like, I don't think anybody had that on their bingo card that we were going to drop 7 goals on them and potentially like could have gotten 8 or 9. Like, I keep thinking back to like the Yannick Yankum chance where he tried to chip the keeper. And I'm like, man, maybe if you just cut it to the side, you might have popped around him, because he was not great about shifting. at all. I think he just got lucky that it was right at his face and caught it. And then, of course, like with Cameron Lacey, whenever he gets that breakaway and then that Fuego player grabs him and tries to rip his kid off, like, and I'm like, bro, you're down 6-1. Why did you take that red? You're better off just letting your keeper see if he could stop it on his own, avoid the red, and then make it to the next game. I guess not that it mattered because they drew Greenville anyway, but it just seemed like a silly red to take. But that was another opportunity that I was like, and then you start thinking, dang, that last Jaeger Cup match when we needed 8 goals to pass through, what would have it just been Fuego on a Wednesday night, and then we got 8 goals, and then we passed through. The scenes would have been wild. And I don't know. Hopefully, a lot of people saw this. A guy who does a lot of content for Greenville, he likes to do just like general random facts too. And so he had mentioned that performance was actually tied for the largest margin of victory, it was tied for the largest margin of victory, because then there was another one with Charlotte and Chattanooga, where Chattanooga beat Charlotte by like 6 goals. It was 7-1, same as us. So second time that scoreline had happened in USL1 history, which was kind of cool. But before we get to the next piece, like, was that like a palate cleanser or was it just me? I know losing to One Knox at home for the opener was horrible. Like, it felt terrible, especially as I'm doing the interviews and you hear them celebrating in the background. But like a 7-1 performance, even against a bad team like Fuego, in that moment, I felt like I was like, I can breathe a little bit. What were you guys' thoughts?
I mean, it felt like we could take on the world at that point. It felt like, oh, maybe this is the momentum swing that we need.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really fun in the moment. Uh, good performance from a lot of guys. Uh, I wrote in my match preview for that game that if we could utilize Nico, that we would have a good game, and he was the catalyst for it. He started it off for us, getting the assist, and I think that's just kind of a good recipe. And I feel like sometimes we steer away from that. But man, like, we were going with that and it worked and we kept scoring. And,
Yeah.
it felt really fun to win. Like, it felt really fun to win, period, let alone score a bunch of goals,
Felt like a fever dream. Felt like it was fake.
Yeah, in the moment, you're like, is this happening?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. Kyle, what about you, man?
No, yeah, I mean, it was great. It's one of those, like, everything's going right. I think we were getting into a little conversation on Twitter or X about other teams that we cheer for, and like commiserating with teams that are just perennial losers or heartbreaks, whatever. But I feel like any sports fan out there, at least once you've had this feeling, right, of like, no matter how bad the team is, or even the
Mm-hmm.
team that's good and has high expectations, like this type of victory win is like, doesn't really matter how bad the season's going. It's just, there's something sweet to just seeing everything clicking, and like you really feel like nothing could go wrong. And one of us in the group said, mentioned when Fuego got a goal back, that they've seen this song and dance before. And I'm not going to say who in the text group that it was, but it even felt different than that, because you're right. We saw
Mm-hmm.
this team blow a 3-0 first half lead earlier this season, and it's like we've seen it, but for some reason it just didn't feel that way. And of course, it's easy to say in hindsight 3 goals later, but yeah, it was fantastic. It was like, I mean, I'm sure we have a lot of Kentucky basketball fans out there, and I just remember a few years ago beating Kansas by like 1,000,000 points in January. Of course, that season, I think it was the season they lost to St. Peter's. But anyway, but like anytime you just go in and just beat the absolute crap out of a team, it's fun no matter what. Like, no matter who it is, it's fun. And so it did remind me of that Kentucky basketball game from January or early February and a few years ago, and just beating the crap out of Kansas. So yeah, it was awesome, and it seemed like the lads were having a good time out there too. So that was fun to see.
It's true. And whenever Fuego got that goal, I was just like, let him have it. And I'm never like that. But in that game, I was like, let them take that. Like they can have that one. That's their pity goal. And we're just gonna keep going. And man, we did. We did. And it got to the point where you felt like we were invincible because you pointed out, Kyle, it looked like the team was having fun. And
Mhm.
I can't recall many games where it looked like as a squad, they were just like having fun and just being like, we're doing it, we're doing the thing. And it felt like they were taking pride in it. And it just was a morale boost for fans and I think for the team alike. And you start to think, okay, we're so close to that last playoff spot, and this is how we show up. Like the sky's the limit at this point. We can do it. And you really truly felt like the situation with One Knox beating us, it was a turning point. Even in like the pre-match outfit pics and videos. Dylan, you texted us, and Dylan was like, check that out, guys. And we looked, and everybody's in LSC gear. Nobody's in their normal drip. Nobody's like wearing something that's their style. It's all team gear, and that was it. And I was even saying like we're locked in. Like this, it's locked in right now. We got this, and we were. It's like we manifested it, and for once, it was like we are going out there as a team performance. We are not letting off the brake or the gas. No brakes at all involved in this match, and we're just going to keep seeing this one through. We're not going to score two and then just kind of be like, all right, let's hang on to those two. We're going for more and letting everybody get in on the party. And it was the coolest, most fun soccer ever. And I think even if we hadn't scored seven, if we'd only scored 1-1 or 2-1, I think it was just the drive from the team for the full time that got everybody going. And I think that's what everybody appreciated. And that we were like making subs. We were making subs. And, I heard so many people in the crowd being like, yeah, coach, you made a sub. We got this now. And, just saying like ridiculous things like that. But I just think everybody wants to see the energy stay high through these matches because the entertainment value, it matters, right? It's you want to see your team lay it all out there, and that's what makes it entertaining, And of course, we want to win, and you don't want to like lose points because that's a bummer. Like even if they do lay it out there, but it helps ease it a little bit. I was on cloud nine. And to be able to have that be a home match at our new stadium, it's historic. The chances of us doing another 7-1, I don't know. I'm not going to say it's
Rare.
zero, but I mean the fact that we did that and it's only the second time it's been done in US1 history, which is a short history, admittedly. It's not like the league's been around for 30 years or something crazy. But at the same time, it was an accomplishment, and it's one of the few times that you're going to see something like that. So vibes were really high, and I think that's like something that some fans, including myself, let kind of get a hold of them was those highs that we all were experiencing from this, and forgetting like, oh wow, we do have another match just coming up, like right around the corner. Like we have to turn right around, go to Richmond, got to travel there, get prepped, play another team who is also fighting for that last spot and hasn't shown signs of giving up and is actually kind of gaining a little bit of momentum. And it kind of pulled us back to reality some. We go to Richmond and we get thumped. Not great. It sucked. I was hoping that we would be able to keep that momentum, but guys were tired. I don't know how you guys felt about it, but I feel like when we went in that Richmond match, it felt not as energetic as what it did against Fuego, even before the goals.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like watching the game and comparatively to all of our matches this season, it looked pretty much the same. We looked flat-footed and tired, and I don't know if that's really like from the amount of games or that's just like how the team normally has been. You know, Wednesday was an anomaly and it was like so awesome. And if we could like just capture that like vibe and magic and spread it to every game, everyone play with the same, enthusiasm, intensity, making subs,
Yeah.
making the changes. I mean, it was just kind of I like I've always been like hard on them this season. You
Right.
know, I've been disappointed. Um, and I don't know if I can be that disappointed in the loss because of like the amount of games that they've played. So like I really don't know if I can chalk this up to team tactics or
Mhm.
or the just amount of time they've spent running around. Like they've really had no rest, and then yeah, you factor in travel time. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It definitely felt like a schedule loss. Like if you looked at the schedule, when it came out, like, okay, that Sunday is going to be tough. Like if you're an NBA fan, you see those back-to-back games, you're like, all right, that second, the second night's always tougher. The only part of the problem is you don't want to put yourself in these positions this late in the season to have to need every single one of these matches like Lexington needs. And so obviously that's kind of where you start putting yourself a little bit behind, and then you have to take advantage of every match. And unfortunately unable to roll Wednesday's um, route into a positive match on Saturday. And like it just seemed a little lackluster. I know the stats actually favor Lexington in a lot of ways in terms of possession and
Mhm.
passes and the way they were moving the ball, but it just didn't seem, obviously didn't have the same spark as Wednesday, needless to say, but also just didn't it looked like a lot of other Lexington matches this year we've seen where it was just kind of lackluster and flat. I feel like at least there was a bit of an excuse this time around, but again, kind of running out of runway, so to speak, on the amount of points available for this team to get.
Uh, I want to say that like hindsight is 2020, so I can easily say this now, but we could have maybe played a different lineup, or we know that Fuego is kind of like a weak opponent. We could have maybe rested some of the guys to play a stronger opponent on Saturday against Richmond. Obviously, like I said, hindsight is 2020, because I do feel, to back up my point, I feel like when we brought on Tate against Richmond, he created the most chances, it felt like, all game. Like he had that cross that was dangerous into the box, and then he let off a shot that was, it was off target. They didn't have to make a save. But if he's in there for maybe the whole game, or at least to start and get 60 minutes as opposed to like the 30 minutes, he's creating a chance. And, maybe we play Lacey and, or, we start Lacey on Saturday instead of Cam because Lacey didn't have as much time in Wednesday. I don't know. Like I said, hindsight is 2020. But, Kyle just said, we we shouldn't have backed ourselves into this corner to begin
Yeah.
with.
Yeah, and there's and the two pushbacks on that argument would be one, if I don't know if we're going to start talking hot seat, but I know a question was asked relating to hot seats. Um, but if you're a coach that doesn't put out your A lineup and loses that home match, then it's obviously that's a horrible
Yeah.
scenario. But and then the other pushback is, hey, this lineup just went 7-1. Like, am I going to be an idiot for not running this lineup back? Type of thing. Even though I know it wasn't the exact same, but it was essentially the same. And so I think those, I'm just putting myself in their shoes, but I get your point because it's been a season long thing where we've wanted more minutes and experience from more players. And you can even go back to the very last Jaeger Cup match where I think Tyler and Darren Powell might have been the only two people who thought, 8-0 or 9-0 or whatever it had to be was even possible. Like, well, what are we doing? Why are we playing these guys?
Yeah.
Anytime you have a chance, sorry, Tyler, anytime you have a chance to put
It's true.
real match minutes. No, like, and this is like every level of coaching, I feel like, too. And,
Yeah.
when I was in high school, I played baseball. Okay. And our coach always tried to get as many at bats for as many players as he could in the regular season. And people always asked him why he did that and didn't stick with the lineup. But he knew when playoffs came, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know who's going to be healthy. You don't know who, is going to be playing well at that point. And you can't have that a playoff appearance be the first plate appearance for a kid all season. Like you have to
Mm-hmm.
have these minutes on your legs and this real world experience, real game experience. And so not only are these players not getting the minutes, but I don't know if the coaching staffs trust them really because they haven't seen them, because they haven't played them. So it's like, I don't know, it's kind of a vicious circle thing too, where you have your team that went 7-1 against Fuego. You don't want to mess that up. I get that. But at the same time, it's like you might have also left yourself with a pretty bare cupboard because of matches from months ago where we kind of sat here and kept scratching our head, like, why isn't so-and-so getting minutes? And then the meaningless Jaeger Cup final match, like why was that not just a fresh 11 where we're seeing some guys out there? So I don't know, rant over, but at the same time,
No,
you know,
it's
I'm
true though.
playing both sides of it with that answer. I feel like I see the coach's side of things, but
Mm-hmm.
I also think we've painted ourselves into a corner in a lot of different ways, both with the players and also with the way the standings look right now.
And I think that's really what it comes down to is we put ourselves in a situation where we couldn't do anything other than our starting 11 and hope that they had enough gas in the tank and then promise, hey guys, you're going to have a bye week after this. So just do everything you can, put it all out there. Bye week's coming, rest up, and then we'll travel to Greenville, see what we can do from there. That all being said, I think the thing that concerned me the most is if you're going to push your starters like that and say, okay, do this third one. We gotta have it. It felt very much like the Richmond game. We were playing for a draw. And we might not have been. I'm not trying to say or imply that was the game plan that anybody ever once said, play for a draw. I'm just saying the energy level and the fact that for the whole first half, it seemed like we could not find our way into the attacking third. Like we were having such a hard time getting there. And it just felt so different than against Fuego, which, apples, oranges. Richmond is not Fuego. But man, we just didn't have it. We just didn't have it to be able to do that. And I know there were several players that were frustrated by that and expressed that and wanted more from that. But it's where we're at now. Like the tough thing that we're having to deal with is all of us in this situation trying to get that 8th spot. We're in a similar spot now more than ever because we've all played 18 games except for Central Valley. So Fuego has not played 18. They played 17. I think, yeah, they got that draw against Greenville, but Greenville's not been in form here lately. They're not the team they were at the beginning of the season, so it's not quite as impressive as what you would think it is on paper. I don't think Fuego's catching up with anybody. I just don't. Sorry, Jermaine Jones, big fan with U.S. men's national team, but he's not even there. He's not even showing up to coach his team at this point. So if that doesn't scream give up, I don't know what else does. And I just don't think they have it in them to climb that ladder. Now, on the flip side, we're right there with Chattanooga. We both have 17 points. And then Richmond and Georgia, South Georgia Tormenta, they have 19 off of 18 games. So we are completely in the hunt. We are. Like, we are right there. It just takes a couple results to go right for us. But we also keep shooting ourselves in the foot and putting our fate in other people's hands. like we're not finishing the job ourselves. And we're saying, do us a favor, Tormenta, lose. Sound good? Do us a favor, Richmond, lose. Sound good? And that's troublesome that's where we're at to try and get that 8th spot is we need them to lose and we need to win. And you start looking at all these different schedules that are left, everybody's games that they have remaining. Richmond probably has the easiest time out of everybody, and they're already in number 8. So being an 8 and then on paper, at least, having the easier schedule. Because if you could correct me if I'm wrong, I think they're the only one of us that doesn't have 3 current playoff teams to face. I think they only have 2, if I remember right. Which anything can happen. Clearly, we scored 7 goals on a team. Anything can happen. It just starts getting dicey whenever you start realizing that, another team might have an edge on you just schedule wise versus what you have left. Now, I think that we could probably handle a lot of business going into this. I don't think that it's a foregone conclusion, especially with looking at the form of the teams that we have left to play. Nobody is quite the juggernaut that they once were earlier in the season. Whereas if we had faced them, in week 6, week 7, I might have been sweating a little bit more than I am now. That's not saying that I'm crazy confident and thinking that we're going to go in there and just sweep the floor. But it's tight, So I don't know. Like, what are you guys' thoughts on just the remaining schedule?
Well, obviously, you still have Union Omaha on the schedule, and they look like they haven't really slowed down too much, kind of running away. I know they'll still be playing for that top seed. You kind of hope once they technically clinched a playoff place, but like I doubt they're going to be resting anyone or really looking to kind of pull off the gas at all, just because there's still so many matches left to kind of decide the seeding. But I mean, it it's a very similar answer to talking about Sunday's performance. It's like we kind of did this to ourselves type of thing. You have Charlotte again, you have Union Omaha, you mentioned Greenville, maybe not quite in form, and Charlotte for the you know same reason, not in form either, with just a couple draws and a win in their last 4. But
Yeah.
I feel like it's going to be difficult. However, I've said since the start of the inaugural season, I feel like with the exception of Fuego, I think any team can win on any given night. It's just trying to piece them together. I think the talent discrepancy in this league is like razor thin. So it really is, to me, just an any given night type of league. And the problem is you have to now put 4 of those in a row, versus maybe having a little bit of having some leeway. But I think this team can beat any other team. So I'm not super worried about that on any given night. It's just looking at the 4 in a row is where it gets a little daunting. I do like that, if you pull up the table, like Lexington has season 11th, but if you look at the points, I mean, the 8th spot is still very much up for grabs.
Yeah.
You mentioned there's really 4 teams that are going for it, and I mean Lexington has just as good of a chance as any, mathematically at least, and so we'll see how it goes. Dylan, what do you think of the schedule?
I think we are looking at a rough stretch. At least like the next 3, and considering that the 3 out of 4 of these matches are away, does not bode well for us either. So I'm extremely concerned. And when I say extremely, I would say that's maybe an understatement. um,
No.
yeah, I don't know if we can do it. I'm just trying to be like, I'm not even trying to be like a pessimist here. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just trying
Just
to
as
be
hard.
realistic
Yeah.
in the situation. And I've been this way the whole season. Please prove me wrong. Like, if you're the coach or the players and you're listening to me and you're like, why is this guy so negative all the time? Like, please just prove me wrong. Just shut me up and then I'll like stop. Like, that's all I ask, really.
My dream is for you guys to celebrate every weekend in front of Dylan specifically.
That's
Not
fine.
the opposing fans. Just no, I'm just kidding.
I mean,
They'd be like, "Why do they
we all
keep going to
want
that guy?" Like people who have no idea who we are.
it.
Is that like their like brother or friend or? But no, you're. I mean, that's not pessimistic, man. It really isn't. We give you a hard time for that, but it's hard. Like if you say it's not, then you haven't been watching all season, and you haven't been watching how chaotic a lot of these other teams have played. Like I just brought it up that Central Valley, who we dropped 7 on, went and tied Greenville 2-2. Like that is chaotic. That just is. It's not a sure thing by any measure, no matter how optimistic you are. It's going to be a tough one. Let's just do this. Okay, can we just do like no scores, because we'll do that like later when we do our little weekend thing, right? Why don't we just hit it with what each match is going to be? Win, loss, draw. Can we do that? We'll just do that now and speak it into existence, and then we'll see what happens when we finish this all off. Does that sound okay?
Let's do it.
Okay,
You go
I'm
first.
I'm gonna go first. I'm gonna say Greenville is vulnerable right now. You look at results, it's eerily similar between us as far as like wins, draws, and losses in recent form. Even like our most recent wins have both been blowouts of teams. So this is kind of like a crazy matchup. It's kind of one of those ones that I feel like my gut tells me it's going to be a draw. I'm hoping for a win, but I think it's going to be a draw if I'm being real with myself. So Greenville, I think, is going to be a draw. Omaha, I think the simple fact that we're going to be at their stadium and they've been kind of on fire for the most part, minus, a couple hiccups here and in there. I think that's going to be a loss. I want to believe. I hope we beat them. It'll be amazing, but I think it's going to be a loss. Charlotte also been very back and forth. I think we can beat them, especially since it's at home. I don't think that they're going to come in and sweep the floor with us. I think we catch a win, and I think Chattanooga, we got their number. That's going to be a win. So I've got draw, loss, win for me.
I see it. Greenville loss, Omaha loss, Charlotte draw because we're home, and Chattanooga away loss.
Kyle.
So you've got 1 point on the Final Four. So we are missing the Yoffs in Dylan's version.
Yes.
Tyler, you've given us 7 points.
I've given us 7.
7. So we're very much in the mix.
Mix.
Although no guarantees, obviously, because we don't know the other results. I would say the road record for this club has been notably poor. I would say Greenville is going to be a loss, and I'm going to say Union Omaha is going to be a loss, and I'm going to say Charlotte at home will be a dub, and I'm going to say Saturday, October 26th on the road, have to have 3 points to get into the playoffs, and Lexington will win. So I got loss, win.
Okay. So 6 points from Kyle. Okay. Yeah. Oh man, it's gonna be tough. Even when you say the points out loud, you realize how much you need the other teams to lose. That's what scares me more than anything is how much we need other teams to lose. It's not so much the confidence in my team; it's the confidence that they won't.
I'm hoping somehow that Chattanooga match becomes like if either team wins, they're in. It very well could be that one means nothing because Richmond or Tormenta have already got it, but we'll see.
In that point, we'll just ask Darren Powell if he'll let us play. Sub me in, coach. Played center back long ago. No, we'll see what happens. It's going to come down to that, but we're locked in now. We've got our predictions for how this is going to play out. We'll do like score predictions another time, and we can change this. I'm not going to hold us to this. If we feel like vibes are different, whatever, we'll play week by week, but it'll be fun to look back at this at the end of all of it and say, Tyler was amazingly right, and we're in the playoffs, and we're going to win the whole thing. And then everybody cheers, and everybody cries, tears of joy, and there's a celebration, parade in the streets, all of that stuff. That'll happen, right? You guys stop looking at me like that.
I think the parade would definitely happen for you, Tyler, in the streets.
No, it's for us.
Oh, for us,
celebrating. It's not just us, like CKL, like Lexington Sporting Club, like Lexington Sporting Club parade, and
this is just to get into the playoffs, by the way. So
maybe we can be the grand marshals.
The last seed in the. Yeah,
you think I can ride a float?
You guys can.
Go ahead. I think I predicted like a top 2 finish this year for this team. So.
No.
I guess there's still a chance technically if I would just go based off the playoffs, but
I probably said we win everything. I don't know. I don't even know what I said, but I can probably guess. I probably was like, you know what? We're going to win the Champions League while we're at it.
Champions. Yeah.
You guys can fact check me on this, but I think I texted you guys before the match on Saturday, and I said if we made it to the playoffs and won the league, that I would get a LSC tattoo on my body somewhere. So I said it. So motivation.
Brought it up.
I
Yeah.
think you
Man,
just want an LSE tattoo. You should just get
I
one.
think that's what it is. Yeah. Oh, you should let me do it.
No, I don't have one already. So
Oh,
You don't have
yeah,
one LSE tattoo yet?
no, I don't have a
tattoo in
tattoo.
general.
Period. Yeah.
You need to
Ah,
get
Yeah.
like a
maybe get a
giant
bad
one
boy.
on your
Do like
back.
neck. Oh, I was thinking
Oh,
neck.
oh,
I'll
that's
just
cool
get
too.
I'll just get a
Come
mall on
on,
my
you
back.
greens.
Yeah, a
COYG.
mall making a save
Yes,
across
on
your
my
back.
back. Yes.
Yes.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
it'll look like Richarlison's tattoo. Oh my god.
Heck yeah. There we
If
go. It's
Google that
done.
if you don't know what that
That's
is.
perfect. Oh geez. We got something to kind of wrap up the men's talk. Man, this is like feels like a cruddy one to end on. But I don't like avoiding the questions as much as I like hate these subjects. So we actually had another question that we're gonna kind of end off, and it flows perfectly with all this playoff talk and where we're gonna be at the end of this, right? And sports is very much a results based business. It is a business, as much as people kind of forget that whole side of it, and we're all just caught up in like the vibes of it all, and getting to show out and support our team each weekend. There's turnover. There is. And it especially is true if you do amazingly well and people go on to great things, or you do amazingly bad and people fade off into wherever to seek new opportunities. So we had a fan ask, if we get the 8 seed, is it good enough for Powell to keep his job? We had that question. So that if we get the 8 seed, which I'm assuming is also implying that if we miss the playoffs, it's not great.
So I have a Dylan. I don't know if you want to answer this first, or
Yep.
if you'd like me to answer this first.
No, go.
Go for
Go.
it.
You take
Insider
the
man.
You guys are both like pointing at me like this. I like
That's
that.
take the
right. It's
floor.
official.
My
You.
my
You.
liege.
Oh.
I have kind of I don't know if it's skewed or different or whatever, a view of head coaches that I don't know is super popular in today's, like, I don't know, quick.
Off with their heads world.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
my thinking on coaches and coaching staffs is that if it is purely based on a result, then you might not end up with the coach or the staff that you intended, or that is necessarily even best for your club. And here's kind
Right.
of what I mean. Like, if we get into this fake match that I made with Chattanooga where one team wins, they're in, one team loses, they're out. And let's say it's 0-0 and it's stoppage time in the second half. So we're 95 minutes into this match, and Cameron Lancaster slams home some 25-yard free kick, glances off, goes upper 90, whatever you want to call it. We run off the pitch and celebrating, and we're into the playoffs. Like, the way I look at it is, if that ball had just gone wide of the crossbar and we draw and 1 point's not good enough to get in, all of a sudden Powell's not our guy. But the fact that the ball went in the net, now Powell is our guy. Like, do you know what I mean? To me, I'm like,
Yeah.
I almost like reverse engineer these, like, the way the Milwaukee Bucks. This is my third basketball reference on a soccer podcast. The way the Milwaukee Bucks last year under
Big
Adrian,
basketball guy.
we're like this. Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I don't know why they're about to go into preseason. So, but the Bucks are like the first or second team in the East, and they fired their coach. People
Yeah.
kind of like, hey, what's going on here? But it was clearly a systematic, and it was a cultural thing where it was not working out, and they knew, like, this is not our guy. So to me,
Yeah.
you're playing these, like, again, I made up that fake scenario against Chattanooga, but like, if Powell is not your guy, you know that right now. I think, like, I think
Yeah.
you already know that. If you're Lexington's ownership, if you're Stockley and everyone else who's in the room making these decisions, like, I think you already know. I don't think you need to see 4 more matches. So,
Yeah.
in my opinion, it it might be best to have a change in direction going up to USL Championship. And I don't know. I guess I shouldn't say 4 matches isn't enough. I mean, we could be completely blown away by a change in the last 4 matches of this club, and everything's pointing to the future, and we win the cup, and everyone's hunky dory. But to me, when it comes to coaches, if you're basing it based on like one result or one, like, ultimatum that really isn't even that, like, impressive. Like, oh, we got the 8 seed. Cool. Now we get to go and maybe we lose the first round. So to me, getting the 8 seed, the answer to the question, the short answer is no. The long answer, you have to rewind several times to go hear it. But I feel like that's how I've always approached coaching. Like if you have a guy, you stick with him. Wins, losses. Now, obviously, everyone's got a limit. You can't have 4 losing seasons in a row. But like, there are teams and clubs that have successfully stuck with guys who they knew were the right fit, and it eventually works out. And so, to me, if you're really reactionary like that, I don't think that's the best way to kind of go about doing business. But if you know he's not the guy, you already know that right now.
Yeah, I feel I feel like you said it like really fantastic. You put a very good perspective on the situation. Like, and sometimes that's a good situation to be in, even though it's a bad situation at the moment. Like, it's a good situation to know if you have a guy or not. You don't want to be guy curious in a way. You don't know if you have the guy or not. So there's that. I mean, I haven't flat out said it because I don't want to be rude. It's not nice to talk about another man's job, but I definitely don't think he's the answer. It's been clear to me all season long that this team is not championship caliber with the coaching. Maybe on like the field, there's been a lot of great individual performances, and if we can get them together as a team, they could really be kicking and moving. But just under the current situation, I don't think that is the case. Like, I don't think we want to go into the championship the same way we are right now. And yeah, to Kyle's point is like, I don't think it all hangs in the balance of just one game, playoffs or not. I think realistically we should have been competing a lot higher, especially if the goal was to be in the championship. We should at least have been 8th and above all season, in my opinion. And I think with the trajectory of like the incoming talent in and the progress from last season, like last season, it actually felt like it was fun and we were working towards a goal and there was an identity to the team. And this season, there's no identity to the team. Anytime I feel like we get momentum, the next game it's completely stopped. The things that I do think we do really great, we don't do. Like, for example, Cameron Lancaster, Deadeye specialist, like, and he took only one of our free kicks on Saturday. Like, what's up with that? Like, I don't know. Just a lot of those details you can't get away with in the playoffs, let alone USL Championship. And that's pretty much my answer.
You guys hit the nail on the head, and that's my sentiment. We've expressed this on this pod many times. Something is off with the culture of our team this year. It's just not there. And I don't know if anybody can push back against that because, like, I don't know, the team might hear from fans, but I suspect the team doesn't hear from most fans that are truly there and truly care like we hear from them on a regular basis. Like, they'll hear from the trolls, right? The people that just pop out of nowhere and are like, I've never seen that account in my life, and they're giving our team crap. We hear from people that we see at games on the regular, and they've expressed those things to us as well. Like, something isn't quite right with the culture of the team. And if you want a piece of evidence, and I will say, like, there's a little bit to follow this, but it's just like after the loss against One Knox, and then we had Nico go over and, clap for the Railbirds. And they, according to the Railbirds, nobody else came over. I will say, because I was down on the field for interviews, right after the match ended, Powell rallied everybody up, grabbed them, and huddled them up. And so that took a lot longer than normal. Usually that doesn't happen. Usually everybody's kind of mulling around, doing their thing. So that could have been part of why many people didn't show up. And I will also say that once that huddle was over, I did see many players go over to sign autographs for the kids, which I think is very important, right? You go for your young fans, that's important. And then afterwards, many players did apologize. But I think that, like, instances like that, I think they don't happen unless you don't have like the culture you need to be like, We are here for the fans. You are pouring everything you have out for the fans. You are being paid because the fans are buying tickets and you're here supporting you day in and day out. And I don't care if there's 5 people in those stands, those 5 people are passionate enough to come watch you play soccer. And we're going to do everything we can on this field to make things happen. And this isn't me like here bashing players, coaches, whatever, but I will say, like, it just at many times this season felt like whatever the result was, it was good enough. If it was a loss, good enough. If it was a draw, good enough. If it was a win, good enough. And I don't think it's good enough, because we need to know that, like, as a complete team from technical staff all the way down, that they're there putting it all on the line for our city. And it's not just a we're here together and this is a paycheck. And I think it's also very telling that throughout the season, we keep seeing people like disappear. And some of them are injuries, but we've had legit players that there's not been an announcement that they're not with the team anymore, that are not with the team anymore. And I feel like that's weird. And then we have all these players all of a sudden showing up towards the tail end of our season. And it's like, wait a second, don't we have somebody that plays that position that we've not seen out there? And I just
Preach.
think we're just putting a lot of Band-Aids on things. And I think until you build a team identity that you're like, this is who we are, and I believe in you, you believe in me, I feel like that's paramount for a coach. You get every member of that team on the same page. And if there's an outlier, you find a way to make them not an outlier. And they are now a part of that group. And they feel like a cohesive unit working towards the same goal. And sometimes it just doesn't feel like we're a cohesive unit working towards the same goal. It feels like sometimes some of us are going through the motions. And that sucks. That sucks to recognize that. And that's not a like a CKL thing. I'm telling you, I'm hearing this from fans. We notice, like, every fan that's in those stands regularly or watches on TV, they see these things. They pick up on these things, especially if they were here last year and things feel different, which things will feel different no matter what. But the difference is very telling. And so in my mind, this is a very long-winded way of saying what Kyle said is perfectly right. It's not just a win-loss draw, you're fired. It's a, are you the person to build this back to what it needs to be, make it something that can flourish? And even when we get those tough results, people are like, those are our players. Those are the people we are supporting. And I know there are a lot of things going on this year, but another example, I don't know if anybody else has noticed this, but kind of like the character content related to the guys team this year, been few and far between. Like, we had a lot of it last year. We have a lot of it this year for the women's side. There's been barely any for the guys side, which you need that. As much as, like, some people feel like it's a distraction, it is not a distraction. That is how you humanize your team to the fans. You make your fans be like, that was a bad game. It just was. But you know what? Like, I like them. I like them as people. I want to support them some more. I feel like they're here for the right reasons. And you're missing those opportunities to humanize the team, to get that and to build that connection that's there. That's why, so many of our old players have so many fans. Like, you hear them going crazy for last year's crew. And it's not a matter of like the fans don't like the new guys. That's not what that is. It's just the fans feel like they know them better. And it's not just simply because they played for us for a year. It's because they saw those little behind the scenes things and they went to events with those players. It's just like Kyle, you helped organize that event last year for season ticket holders to watch that Charlotte away game that was at LSC Indoor. 1 or 2. Was it 1 or 2? One or the other? One or the other. And
It was at 2, yeah. Yeah.
and there were players there, players that didn't travel. They showed up. They were milling around with fans and stuff, and that was a cool thing. So I just feel if we're going to be competitive in the championship, we have to be more than a bunch of impressive names on paper. We have to be an actual team. Like, not to be weird and cliche, but we need some like Ted Lasso style magic where you bring everybody into the fold and you're like, here's our goal and here's what we're doing. And each of you is going to use your talents to make this happen. And you're going to support each other while we make it happen. And if you're not with this and you're not driving towards this goal for our fans, we're going to figure out how to make that happen. And I just don't know that we're going to be able to make that happen next year if we stay the course that we're on. I don't know. So
Yep.
sorry, that was
It was a
like a
great
weird bottled
monologue.
up thing.
It was a great monologue. I agree with you, and you said it very well, and you captured a lot of what like I'm feeling and what I think a lot of people are probably feeling. It's very evident the culture around it, like just the vibes last season. I can think about like Stockley on the sides, like smiling and chopping it up, like with his players on the field and his coaches and interacting with the fans, and then like after games, like looking at the stands and clapping and getting the guys to do that as well. Like guys would always come around and right to where we were sitting and clap in front of us as we clap for them, and we don't I'm not getting that this season. It's just very evident, like you said, Tyler.
Yeah.
And like I think a lot of the body language police on social media and stuff, like for any sport, they're like, oh, why is so and so not giving high fives on the bench? Like, why? Like, I get it's really hard to be that person and that teammate when you're losing. Like, that
Yeah.
sucks. It sucks to lose. Like, I
Right.
get it. It's like that. I never, a lot of people pick apart athletes, when they're like slumping their shoulders. It's like, well, they're humans too. But at the end of the
Yes.
day, it kind of goes back to that whole like culture thing where it's just because the result didn't go your way, just because it might have been a disappointing individual performance, perhaps, like you have to still remember kind of why you're there. The community should be why you're there, and so especially at this level of soccer, like I'm sorry, it's just this is this really should be a community based type of franchise and league, and I feel like the most successful, I mean, just down the road in Louisville, like they're, they're going to be one of the favorites. They're going to possibly add a third star to their crest this year, and they're still engaged in
Mhm.
the community. You know what I mean? Like that's just part of who they are. So I think you have to take, like, good or bad, you still have to be that kind of community focused team when it comes to this level of soccer.
100%. 100%. So, and none of us here are the type that are out here calling, for coaches or players to be like, "Boo, I hope you move on and get, thrown in the bin." That's just not who we are, but and I make apologies for everybody. You know what I mean? Like, Kyle and Dylan give me stuff about that all the time. Kyle, he'll be positive. Dylan, he keeps us grounded. But sometimes my head's in the clouds no matter what. And it's just the reality of the matter is, like, we want something very specific for this club. And when I say we, I don't mean Crane Kicks Lex. Okay. Again, like, we are a small, minute piece of this fan base. Like, we, in the grand scheme of it all, and the, thousands of people that live in Lexington and support this team, it's not what it really, it's not what matters. Right. But the fans do, the greater fan base does. And they deserve, a team and a club that is going to drive for them, like, just go to bat, do the thing. And it it doesn't mean that we are going to expect wins every single match. That's unrealistic. Lou City crushes it every year, like Kyle mentioned, and they don't win every single game. They have bad games. They'll go up against a team that should get throttled by them, and then all of a sudden, what the heck? We just came up with a loss. But it's just all about being there and the appearance and the feel of being there for your community and for the fans first and foremost. And so we need a staff that's going to harbor and nurture that culture, help it grow, help this really feel like a club to call your own, like what they keep touting, right? And I believe that it is, and I believe that it will be, and I believe that it'll grow into that. But we need the right people to help it continue to grow into that. And it's hard decisions. I'm glad I don't have to make these hard decisions. I I hated whenever I was in a position at one of my jobs where I had to make those types of decisions. It was the worst feeling in the world. And I hope anybody who's not with the club in the future finds amazing success wherever they end up. I truly do. I don't want anything bad happening to them just because it didn't go right with us. But um, I do I do hope that things change in some way, shape, or form for us in the off season as we prepare to go to the championship, because it's not getting any easier. And if we're gonna, spend the money to go play with the big dogs, then we got to be able to go out there and bark. It's it's just how it is. That's just the truth of the matter. So we'll see. We'll see though. That's a tough one. I don't like those questions. Make me feel icky. I don't like them at all. But I always try to answer what you all ask, and I don't like dodging those at
You'd be
all.
really bad on first take.
Yeah, I would.
You'd be like the worst first take host.
Yeah,
You'd like
I
argue a
really would.
point, and then like Stephen A would be like, "What about this?" And you'd be like, "Yeah, you know what? You're right. That actually is a
Yeah,
great."
it's
Yeah,
like you're right, Stephen A. Yeah, I was kind of harsh and it's like,
yeah.
what? I would be terrible. I feel bad all the time for that stuff, but you know, we'll see. We'll see. We got games figured out though. Yeah, I know that question came now. At this point, it's a problem for a much later date. We got business to handle right now, and I hope everybody, no matter what's going on behind closed doors, I hope everybody realizes we have business to handle, and nobody should be giving up yet. Everybody should be putting it all out there, doing what we can, and if we have our fate sealed 2 games from now, and we still have 2 more to play, I hope we still show up to ball out for those last 2 games. People who pay to support this team, they deserve that much at least. They deserve effort, if anything else. If you don't want to do the extra little thingies that come along with community clubs, at least put effort into the field for yourself. If you can't find it for the fans, do it for yourself. Think about, how am I going to put this on my resume that I phoned it in for the last few games of the season, I guess. So don't do that. Like, ball outs, and we'll see where we land. All right. I think that was a hefty episode. We got to cover a lot, you guys. Some good topics. Some were tough. Like I said, gave me the icks. But we're there. Dylan, you got something to say, man?
Yeah, and on a positive note, you named the stadium. They called it the Stable.
Oh yeah, it's the Stables now. I forgot about that.
Congrats.
Woo! We the fans named it. That's what I like. I just threw it out there, and people were like, "Yeah, I like it." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." I couldn't say Lexington SC Stadium for everything. I mean, it's fine. It's a fine name, but I was like, we got to have some sort of nickname to go with this. And the Stables sounds fine. I know some people put stable and some people put stables. I don't care. It's all cool. Do whatever you want. But I'm excited about that. I'm excited that we have a nickname for our stadium. I feel like every good stadium deserves a nickname. They
For
just
sure.
do. It gives a little bit extra character. And
Absolutely.
horse team, stables all the way. Track is already taken by I don't know, at least one English football club, probably. I think, right? Somewhere called the
There's
Track.
Probably.
the race course is where Wrexham plays.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a track somewhere, but yeah,
Yeah.
which Wrexham, it's like your Dragons. Are you the race course?
I
I don't know. Sorry, don't come after me, Wrexham. I don't have the money to fight off Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney. Don't come after me. Man. All right. We have a bye week, so it's gonna be a minute for the men's side. Greenville is the next game. It's away. I'm gonna be there. I'm taking my family. If you guys are aware of Geo and Brandon with the TLP pod out there giving us a hard time every once in a while, keeping our soon to be dying rivalry going. It's a bummer. Worked so hard for this, but I'm gonna be out there giving them a hard time. I'm hoping that we can do something to get points. Maybe a win would be amazing. We'll see what happens. Ladies going to Brooklyn next, taking them on. So
No
that'll be
sleep till
an away
Brooklyn.
game. No sleep till Brooklyn. That's right. I'm not going to sleep at all until we get a win. So please win against Brooklyn, so I don't have to stay up for another week. So that's our next one for the ladies. And then we'll have one more at home, right? Before we travel off, and for a little bit of an away stretch for the ladies. So make sure you guys come out and support though. Whenever the ladies are back, because they'll be here before the guys. Go out to those games. Go out to those games. They play hard, you all. I know these Sunday 4:00 games, stuff's going on. Please show up, buy tickets, look for those ticket deals. $10. $10. Come out. Cheer for them. It's a fun time. But until then, Unless we got anything else. Anybody? No? Kyle, cool hat. I was like when you wear it. It's neat. If you're not watching
Thank
the
you.
video,
This is
check out
the
Kyle's cool hat.
get on Kentucky Fish and Wildlife has merch now. So if you're into keeping Kentucky wild and trails and fishing and all that cool stuff, then buy some of their stuff. They have cool branding.
That sounds
Nice.
cool.
I like that. There we go. Wait, are they one of our sponsors now?
No, they're not.
You do that for free,
plug.
Kyle.
Sorry. I'm just trying to, if you want to sponsor us, Kentucky Fish and Wildlife, that's what a read
that would be sick.
That would actually be kind of cool.
I would love that.
Would be pretty sick. I would talk about Kentucky Fish and Wildlife for like half of the episode if they sponsored us, just because it's a cool cause. Cool. All right, guys, everybody listening, thanks for hanging in with us. Go get ready for the next matches, and you know what it is. Until we see you again, come on, you greens.